joy found in winning collectively, truly embracing that. And when guys put the team first, that's when things are truly fun. And you think about all the guys that are onboarded and come into the team. Every team changes every year, and not everyone experiences the same things because they're not here. It always changes. My point is, as a leader and as a quarterback, you want everybody to experience that level of winning. And so this is a first step for us.
It's always good when the guys experience that. The guys that haven't won one experience it for the first time. That's always a gratifying thing. But excitement, it's hard. It's hard to do this. Obviously, in this division, we've seen, the data says, it's hard to repeat as winners in this division. We're happy about that. We'll celebrate it. We've got a lot to clean up, and then, we got a lot more goals on our mind.
After the Eagles lost Super Bowl 39, the NFC East would not see a repeat division champion for the next 20 years. Today, the Philadelphia Eagles broke the longest active streak, but not really a streak in the NFL, repeating as NFC East champions after defeating the Washington Commanders 29-18. Welcome to the Birds Nest Podcast. I'm Joe Donahue. Thank you so much for joining us. This was a game where the Eagles took care of business against a bad team. Although, unlike the Raiders last week, the Eagles seemed to play down to their competition again, especially on the offensive side of the football. And I don't want to lose sight of the fact that the Eagles won this game. The Eagles are NFC East champions, and the Eagles are going to finish at least the number 3 seed. And all of that is really, really good stuff, and we will definitely talk about all of that as we progress through the rest of this episode. But I also want to acknowledge that this was a game where we definitely saw some of the same problems resurfacing in ways that suggest that this team does still have opportunities for growth. It was not a good look for the Philadelphia Eagles to fumble on the opening kickoff, which happened, and it was not a good look for the Eagles to go into halftime down 3, and it was especially not a good look for the Eagles to miss 2 field goals. But we'll get to all of that. But on the whole, no matter how bad a rival is, the NFC East rivals do have a history of playing each other tough. And the Washington Commanders in particular have this penchant for being able to deliver untimely losses to the Philadelphia Eagles. But the Eagles did hold on in the end and finally put their foot on the gas in the second half. And Jalen was actually pretty good over the course of the game on the whole. He finished the day 22 for 30 in the passing game for 185 yards, as well as 2 touchdowns. Jalen was definitely present in the run game as well, 40 yards on 7 carries, which definitely goes a long way towards the importance of the run game. Jalen was sacked twice, and he did luck out on 2 could-have-been turnovers. One was an interception that was called back due to illegal contact on the Commanders. The other was a fumble that Jalen fell on. Both were bad, don't get me wrong about that, but they are definitely things to work on as the Eagles have a few weeks between now and the playoffs, with a couple of games that have differing degrees of meaning for this team. We also saw Saquon Barkley hit a milestone, nabbing his third 100-plus yard rushing game of the season, with 132 yards on 21 carries and a touchdown. Saquon has 1,072 rushing yards on the season. He's crossed the 1,000-yard mark for the 3rd time in 4 years, and for the 5th time in his career. It's also the first time he's had back-to-back 1,000-plus yard rushing seasons since he started in the league in 2018 and 2019. Saquon was a workhorse on the ground, and while things haven't come quite as easy to him this season, teams have figured out ways to shut him down at times over the course of this year, he did have some solid showings today, including a run in the 4th quarter where, despite being hit in the backfield, he was able to turn what otherwise would have been a surefire loss of yards into a 48-yard run that set up the Eagles' next touchdown. And that play in particular was very much type of how Saquon has been performing all season. He still has it in him to be able to be an impact player, a critical guy who the Eagles can rely on to be able to make the play that needs to be made so that they're able to keep a drive alive or be able to march down the field, control the clock, score some points as necessary. Saquon is definitely still that guy, even though he has not been as impactful of a player as he was during the previous season. It'll definitely be good to see how Saquon is utilized as we move closer to the playoffs, but today he was very, very good. Elsewhere in the offense, we saw in the receiving game, A.J. Brown had 9 catches for 95 yards on 12 targets, including a 24-yard catch that set up an Eagles field goal opportunity in the second quarter. Hurts's 2 passing touchdowns were to Devontae Smith, who had 6 catches on 8 targets, including that touchdown, and Dallas Goedert, who was 3 catches on 3 targets for 32 yards, including a crucial touchdown in the third quarter on 3rd and 15. The Eagles were perfect in the red zone, going 3 for 3, 2 for 2 in goal-to-go situations, and even Tank Bigsby got his first touchdown as an Eagle late in the game. So the Eagles were definitely clicking where it counted, and they did enough to win on offense. But as I mentioned, there are definitely some areas where the Eagles need to spend some time working on over the course of these next couple of weeks before the playoffs roll around. Notably, the Eagles' third down conversions continued to be a little bit subpar. They were 4 for 9 on third downs. The tush-push continues to be relatively ineffective this season, so that may need to be something that they revisit or adjust how they utilize that in the playbook. Now, some of the tush-push situation was due to false starts. The Eagles did have 5 penalties on this game, costing them 61 yards. So discipline across the board just needs to be worked on. And I continue to be baffled by some of the decision-making, especially at the end of the first half. There doesn't ever seem to be a sense of urgency by this team. Going into halftime down 3 this game, and the Eagles didn't have that sense of urgency to try to maybe score some points before the Commanders got the ball to start the third quarter. There continued to be some route decisions that are weird. They continue to have me scratching my head as I continue to struggle to see Eagles players get open. And there were definitely times early in this game where the Eagles offense made the Commanders defense, which is a bottom 5 defense by most measurable statistics, look like it was the second coming of Reggie White. So definitely some opportunity for the Eagles as they get ready for a playoff run, however far that's going to go. But as much as there was definitely some concern about the offense throughout this game at points, the bigger concern for me was the multiple miscues on special teams. Will Shipley had a fumble to open the game, and he also ran a kickoff out of the end zone to just shy of the 20-yard line, costing the team about 15 yards on something that could have easily been a touchback. But the bigger special teams issue was Jake Elliott, who was 0 for 2 on field goals today. He has missed 5 field goals in the last 5 games. It was another rough, inconsistent showing for Jake Elliott. This game saw him pulling his field goals wide left consistently. Now, some of that I think was likely due to Commander safety Tyler Owens routinely coming in as what seemed to be a free defender from Elliott's right. And since Elliott was on the left hash mark for both of his field goal attempts, the field goals kept pulling in that direction, probably to try to keep them from being blocked by Owens. But Elliott can't afford to have misses like what was going on tonight going forward. The Eagles are up against very stiff competition in the NFL when it comes to the kicking game. Kickers are kicking the field goal from 60 yards out routinely, some almost 70 yards out. Jake has to be accurate consistently if he wants to keep his legacy going. And he has a really strong legacy. He is one of the few 2-time Super Bowl champions on this Philadelphia Eagles roster. And he is definitely somebody who I believe has it in him to kind of right the ship in that regard. But this was something that he definitely needs to work on. Now, Nick Sirianni continues to have confidence in Jake Elliott despite the inconsistent showing he had today.
I have the utmost confidence in Jake. I think like any team, you have ups and downs, and that's just not offense, defense, that's special teams, and that's your kicker too. I have a ton of confidence in him that he'll respond, he'll rebound from this because he's mentally tough and a great kicker, and we have the utmost faith in Jake moving forward.
But while the offense seemed to be playing down to the Commanders' level at times, and the special teams unit definitely had its miscues, the Eagles' defense shone once again. Marcus Mariota was held to 7 for 14 in the passing game for 95 yards and was sacked once. When he left the game midway through the third quarter due to a hand injury, that opened the door for Josh Johnson, who the Eagles haven't seen since the 2023 NFC Championship game when he came in to replace Brock Purdy, who went down with injury in that game. Johnson came in and was 5 for 9 for 43 yards and an interception into the hands of Cooper DeJean that really helped to ice the game for the Birds. This was another week without Jalen Carter, and Zach Bond and Jordan Davis were definitely very present over the course of this game. Zach Bond had 9 combined tackles. Jordan Davis had 6 combined tackles. We also saw sacks delivered by Byron Young and Brandon Graham in this game. Nakobe Dean did leave the game early due to an injury. He did not return, so obviously we'll see how that pans out over the next couple of weeks. But again, the Eagles' defense as a unit was stellar. They held the Commanders to 220 total net offensive yards and was lights out on third downs. They allowed the Commanders to convert on just 2 of 10 third downs. The Eagles' defense continues to be a bright spot for this team. All this to say that the Philadelphia Eagles are once again NFC East champions, and with their win today, the Dallas Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles' last remaining division rival contending for a playoff spot, have been officially eliminated from the playoffs. So there is plenty of reason for Eagles fans to celebrate this victory. The Eagles cannot finish worse than the number 3 seed. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are behind them, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, even if they were to win out over the course of these next several weeks, the Eagles would own the tiebreaker over, and the Eagles would also own the tiebreaker over the Carolina Panthers, who are the other team in contention for the NFC South title. And with the Philadelphia Eagles needing a lot of help to climb to the number 2 seed, I simply wouldn't expect to see our starters again until the playoffs. The Philadelphia Eagles have a tough game on the road next week against Buffalo, which I don't think, again, the Eagles are going to be putting starters forward for, and definitely they're not going to be out there on Lincoln Financial Field in Week 18 against the Commanders. So we will obviously see how that actually pans out, but I think probably the safer decision is take the next couple of weeks, figure out what is needed to make sure that the Eagles are going to have a deep playoff run this January, and really just allow the backups to get out on the field against some teams that may have some stuff to play for, especially in the Buffalo Bills. But the Philadelphia Eagles are in the playoffs for the 5th season in a row under Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, and that is definitely something to celebrate. At the end of the day, the Birds did what they needed to do, and we will see the Philadelphia Eagles playing again in January as back-to-back NFC East champions for the first time in 20 years. But as always, let me know what you think in the comments below. What stood out to you about this game? What are you excited about? What concerns do you have? What are your hopes as the Eagles move into these final 2 games of the regular season and gear up for a playoff run? Let me know. And thank you so much to everyone for tuning into the Birds Nest Podcast. You can support the Birds Nest Podcast by liking and subscribing to Birds Nest Media right here on YouTube, as well as by sharing to your social media pages. You can also find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, and iHeartRadio. Please visit birdsnestmedia.com for additional Eagles and NFL coverage, and if you feel so inclined to support us in a different way, you can find the link to our Patreon in the description below or at birdsnestmedia.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's go Eagles!